the first 6 months, paying commissions is a huge mistake. More than anything, you don't create consistency. Your ultimate goal is consistency, consistency, consistency.
This is the real estate investing experience. We get it. Real estate can be rough sometimes, and that's why we bring in the experts to talk about the experiences you won't hear anywhere else with your hosts, John Cohen and Chris Grinzik.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Real Estate Investing Experience. I'm your host, Chris Grinzik. With me, as always, is John Cohen. How we doing, bud?
Hanging in there. I'll leave it at that. But no complaints.
I hear you. New start to the week. Just kind of doing our thing. It's kind of status quo now. It's getting cold here. It's really cold this weekend.
It is. I had an MRI and it was like 42 degrees when I woke up, or 43 degrees. So I was like, but the days are beautiful. It's like, mid 60s with a light breeze, sun's out. That's probably the best weather ever. But the mornings are a little chilly, and we're sleeping with the window open at night, which is great because it's nice and cold. So, but you can definitely see this. The seasons are changing, but it's fun.
Yeah, I think today is officially the first day of fall. My mom was telling me so. Summer's over. Time to
yesterday was, but be that as it may.
That's fine. We don't know what day it is. Awesome. But let's jump into today's episode. Got a really great guest on. Happy to have him. Excited to hear his story and learn some stuff from him. So with that being said, Zack, thank you so much for coming on.
Of course. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm glad to be here.
Awesome. You want to kick us off? Just tell everybody a little bit about you, give some context, who you are, your story, and what you're doing.
Yeah. So do you want to know like the story of how I got into real estate or
Yeah, give us your origin story. If that's where you want to start it, if you want to go back to birth, by all means, wherever you want to start.
Let's start with back at birth. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. So I wanted to get into real estate probably because like most people, right? I wanted that financial freedom. I heard that you could make a ton of money. I heard you could have financial passive income, and like was hearing all this terminology, and I was like, man, that sounds like it's for me. Because I was a window cleaner, actually. So I started my first business when I was 17, and I ran a window cleaning business for nearly a decade. And I was getting pretty burnt out. I was doing okay. From the outside looking in, it looked like I knew what I was doing. It looked like I was successful. I had 3 trucks and 13 employees, and I was working my butt off. But I was, from the outside looking in, it looked like I was successful, but I was having major issues. My rotator cuff was going out from all the washing. My employees, I had massive turnover. No one aspires to be a window cleaner, right? And so it was constantly hiring and firing and hiring and firing. And I was so burnt out. I hated all my employees because of it, right? They just wanted to get paid more and do less. And it was just a struggle. And more than anything, what happened is my firstborn, my little boy, was born. And I remember that most magical day, all I could think about is how am I going to pay these medical bills? And it was just like eating at me. And I had to change something, right? It's like, hey, like I'm a dad now. I need to step it up. Even though I'd been working so hard, crazy hours, I just needed something different. So I wanted to get into real estate. And that was a rocky road in itself. Without going into too many details now, last year we did $1.2 million in real estate, and that was only my 4th year in real estate. And so we're doing very well. I mean, the difference now is I get to travel with my family. I have a ton of time freedom. I'm helping other people find financial success. I get to work on taking care of my body instead of just beating up my body. There's just crazy differences in that span of just 4 or 5 years getting into this. So
gotcha. And what type of real estate are you doing? All different types? Are you specializing?
Yeah, so I specialize in wholesaling. So I specialize in finding off-market discounted properties and moving the purchase contracts to either buy and hold investor or fix and flip guy. Like I specialize in finding deals. And I cherry pick and pick up a rental here or there. We do a few flips here and there, but more than anything, my goal is to just have a massive amount of cash flow. And I don't do any of my own appointments. I have a team that does it all for me. So
awesome. And where are you doing this out of? And are you doing it in your backyard or out of state?
Yeah, I'm doing it in my backyard. I'm in Utah right now. We did open a market about a month ago in about 20, 30 miles north of Tampa. And we've got about a month ago, we've got 3 contracts there now, and we might actually have 7 because yesterday we had a contract with 4 houses that we were supposed to get. So I need to follow up with my acquisitions there.
Awesome. So one thing that I think is a little bit interesting to me, which I think is a little bit different to other people, and maybe I'm wrong. It sounds like even when you were doing the window washing stuff, you always had crews of people working for you. So you had more of that, working on your business versus in your business type of mentality. And maybe not so much because you said you threw out, your rotator cuff washing windows. Do you think that's true, that it was something you carried over very early on, or is it something you have learned over time?
It's something that I wanted to learn how to do because, like you said, I was still washing. I was still working my butt off. And the main reason for that is I would schedule everyone to go do their job, but I didn't have the right team members. And so I'd get people calling in sick last second constantly. So I was constantly washing windows. I was constantly out on the job side. I was constantly having to go back and, clean a window that the employees missed, or, just constantly out in the field. And it was really hard to scale that. And going into real estate investing, I did everything myself, and then I started bringing on team members, but I learned some amazing things about managing a team, amazing things. And there's a couple amazing books in regards to that. Traction was a huge book for me that really helped me. And yes, I hired mentors to help me as well. So I hired Todd Toback to help me build out my team, build out my systems, create core values, and hire and fire off those core values. So it's been a journey to get good at building a team, but now I literally don't do any of it. I spend maybe 4 or 5 hours talking to my acquisition team about the deals we have and looking at my KPIs each week. And that's the only amount of time I spend in that business.
Awesome. I think that's interesting. I do want to revisit that in a second. What was it like, the moment of realization of this isn't sustainable, the window washing business, having your kid, and then what was the journey into buying real estate? Was it through the window washing stuff you met people that were doing real estate? Did you just start picking up books and learning about it? What was that process like for you?
Yeah. So, once my son was born, I was still in window cleaning for a few years, but I wanted to start learning more. So I started listening to podcasts just like this. I started listening to audiobooks, just because when be out on the job site window washing, at that point was very brainless. Like I could do it with my eyes closed. Literally I could. And so I started listening, started consuming as much as I could. And, I was like, okay, I need to get rentals. I need to get passive income. That was the first thought I had. And I had bought a duplex already when we first had gotten married. So that was like 3-4 years before my son was born, and we were living in half and renting the other half. But the struggle is I had to come up with like 20-30% down to get another one. And I didn't have good enough debt to income because I was a window cleaner.
Sure.
Right. And I didn't have down payments because I was a window cleaner. Right. So I was like, okay, well, how do I get my next rental? So that was the roadblock I hit. It's like, okay, well, let's get lumps of cash. Let's flip houses. So I started asking all of my wealthy clients that I was washing windows for if they'd give me money to flip houses. Right. Because I didn't know about hard money. I didn't know anything about flipping houses. And I think I pitched to like almost 20 people, and I finally got someone to say yes. And we flipped a house, and I lost money. So
Nice.
I was like, gosh, dang it, this sucks. And not only did I lose money, but I realized that I freaking hate overseeing construction. I hate it. I think it's worse than overseeing window cleaners. Right? It was the worst thing ever. And so, through that experience, I was still listening, and I heard about something called wholesaling. Right? And I was like, wow, that's it. Because if I can get good at finding these properties that are off market, right, and I can negotiate the terms of the sale, whether it's seller finance or if it's just cash for a low value amount, 50 cents on the dollar, well, I could make lumps of cash if they don't fit as a rental, but then I can cherry pick the best ones. And then I started picking up rentals for like $2,000 down. I bought one for $1. Like I took over their mortgage for $1. Like I had some crazy cool deals that I was able to keep for myself. And I started doing, I picked up these 2 horse properties for like $3,000, $4,000 down. It was like a $500,000 purchase price. And I turned around and sold those a couple years later after I kept them for rentals. I sold them for like 6 figures. And like I started having like just crazy, crazy deals fall into my lap. It was pretty amazing.
Gotcha. So how did you start, picking up deals, finding deals? Like what was the entry point for you? And then what have you found that's worked really well?
Yeah. So I hired a mentor immediately once I heard about wholesaling, right? Right as I got done with that flip, I was like, this sucks. I heard about wholesaling. So I paid this guy 10 grand and never got a lead, never did a deal in like 6 months. And I put most of that on a credit card. And it was really painful. And I actually had given up for a few years. After that, I was like, man, maybe wholesaling is like, it's too good to be true, right? You can't buy 50 houses 50 cents on the dollar, especially in this market. All these doubts that everyone has, right? And I also looked at gurus like these con artists that were just selling a dream, but weren't really doing the business themselves. And I ended up meeting my next mentor, which was Cody Hoffine and Tom Kroll. And, I paid them $9,000. And the cool thing is I quickly found someone accidentally. So I was washing windows for this very wealthy developer, actually. And he was like in his 80s. And I was like, wow, that's so cool. And I heard his story. I talked to him for like an hour. And then he told me about, at the end of the conversation, I was like, hey, do you have any properties you'd sell? I'm looking to pick up 2 rentals. And those are the 2 horse properties he sold me. He's like, yeah, I've got these 2 rentals. I haven't collected rents in like 4 months because the property manager bailed. I know they have deferred maintenance. I don't want to deal with them. I'll sell them to you, seller finance, right? Because I couldn't get a loan. And he's like, how much down could you give? And I was like, a couple $1,000. Like, I don't have any money. Right. And he's like, okay, that's fine. I was like, holy crap. So I ended up doing that deal. And I was like, wow, it exists. Like affluent, intelligent people will trade convenience for price. I'm not taking 100%. Advantage of this dude. Right. And it's like, wow, this does work. Right. So that's when I went all in this, like, hey, it exists. It's a wholesome business. Like, because this guy liked me, we built a relationship, and it was a convenience factor for him. He gave me a good deal. And that was my first like motivated seller that I was able to make a crazy amount of money on. But after I hired that second coach, they taught me how to reach out and find motivated sellers on a bigger scale, not just, you happen into one once in your life. Right. And so I started sending postcards to different lists. So different lists of homeowners. So this list was a absentee owner. So people that have a different mailing address than the tax address. And you can buy those from places like ListSource or lots of different places, right? And so I bought this list, sending postcards, and I had the second person call me. And the situation was the seller and his partner had owned over 100 rentals at one point. But the partnership had gone sour. I didn't understand why, but it had gone sour, and it was their last property they owned together. And so he's like, yes, I'd love to sell it. And he gave me his lowest dollar amount. I had no idea what it would actually be worth, but I put it under contract, put it out to my cash buyers, and I sold that purchase contract for $10,000. So that was my first like full traditional wholesale deal. And I was hooked, man. I was like, that's way better than flipping houses, right? Because there was zero risk, zero money. Like, I didn't have to do any of the work. Like it was incredible. And so like with that experience, I started doing a few deals. And at that point I said, I'm done washing windows. I told my business partner, I said, I quit and I'm going to be full-time real estate.
Awesome. I love it. I think that's a really interesting story. How do you, when you're talking to especially more sophisticated people and the plan is to wholesale, how do you convince them that it's okay to put it under contract with you and you're going to then go turn around and flip the contract for higher, basically telling them that, hey, you're basically selling it to me for less than what it's worth? Like, how does that conversation go? Like, how do you convince that person that this is okay, this is a good strategy, like you should do it?
Right. So you said something interesting. You said, how do you convince them? And I need you to understand, every one of the listeners, we don't convince anybody to sell a house to us at a discount. That's like everyone's like, oh, you could sell a ketchup popsicle to a woman in white gloves. It's like, no, you can't. And you never should, right? Because no one wants a ketchup popsicle, right? So the ultimate goal is to find someone that wants speed and convenience for their house. Ultimately, they do, right? Like that's what they want. It's like people that sell stuff to a pawn shop. Why do they do that? They do it for convenience. They know that they could make more selling it elsewhere. They don't know necessarily exactly how much more, but they know they could sell it for more. So I went and actually on my YouTube channel, I went and did a proof of concept that affluent people will trade convenience for price. Right. So I actually went door to door in an affluent neighborhood and I said, hey, I have a mobile pawn shop. Would you like to sell anything that you have or give away anything that you have? To me, I've got cash right now. Would you like to sell anything? I bought a go-kart and I bought furniture and I bought a porch swing, spent $500 in an hour and 45 minutes and turned around and doubled that money. Right. I made $500. And so it's like, okay, so people trade convenience for price all the time. They do it with their houses too. Right. And so people that do that are people that inherit properties, people that are burnout landlords, people that just don't want to deal with the hassles of listing it with an agent. So one of the things that we do to find those people is how we talk to them, right? So we send out all of our marketing and then people reach out to us and say, yes, I'd like to sell my house. And then we say, okay, tell us about the condition or tell us about the house itself. If it's in a really good condition, I always say, why would you even sell it to me? Why would you sell it to an investor? You may make less. Why don't you just list it yourself or list it with an agent? And their answer is, well, maybe I should. It's like, yeah, you probably should if your focus is more money. If you want convenience, maybe working with me might be a fit. And if it's not a fit for me, right, a fit for the situation, they move on. And then, but a lot of times what they'll say, well, I don't want to list it with an agent. I just need to have this done quickly. Okay, well, what's your time frame and why is that your time frame? Well, we got to move out of state. I don't want to deal with it. I've already got another place lined up. I need this closed to be able to buy my other house. It's like, okay, what price point does it have to be at for you to be able to move on? Right? Well, if we could get this much, then it would actually work out perfectly for us because then we can get into a new house and blah, 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 blah. And we try and get that for them. Like that's the price we try and get them. Right? So we put it under contract at that price point to send it to our cash buyers and wholesale it. So the other thing too to keep in mind is a lot of these properties that we put under contract, our ultimate goal is to build our own portfolios and build wealth, and we do keep what we can, but not every deal makes sense for us. So I think that working through a wholesaler for a seller is a better option just for the sheer fact that they have a huge portfolio of other potential buyers if it's not a fit for their own package. Like if you have one flipper that comes to the house, it may not be their ideal situation because they don't specialize in rehabs that are that extensive, right? But a wholesaler has cash buyers for absolutely every possible potential deal.
Yeah. I love what you said, and I'm glad you caught it, of not convincing. There's a really awesome clip I was watching, and it was talking about the whole, the Wolf of Wall Street clip of, hey, here's this pen, sell me this pen. And he said the first question he should have asked, instead of, write down your name for me with a pen, he says, I don't have one. He says he should have asked, do you need a pen? And if the answer is no, then you don't try to sell that to them because they don't need it. They're not an actual buyer. And the rebuttal then is if you can't sell a pen to someone who doesn't want it, you're not a good salesman. It's no, I'm a good salesman when I can go out and find actual leads that are interested in the product that I have. If you have a good product, you have a good service, there are people that are going to want it at some point in time. It's about finding the right person for it, not trying to shove it down somebody's throat who doesn't actually want it. Because not only is it going to be a tougher sell, two, they're going to be unhappy with the product they receive and the service they receive because it's not what they wanted. And now it's going to hurt your reputation because they're actually going to badmouth you later on. And eventually that word of mouth is going to hurt you more than it helped you in the short term.
100%.
And I say that all the time. The amount of people that you can sway their mind by being a good salesman or whatever you want to consider it, that's not the target audience, right? You can't, I tell people this all the time, you can't make somebody sell their house. I don't care how good of a salesman you are. There are people that are hell-bent on an answer. The only way you're going to get them to say yes, give them way too much money, right? And that's not going to generate anything for anybody. So if people are targeting the people that you're convincing, it's the wrong audience. You're the audience you're looking for. It's even for our side when we're raising money, right? You can't convince somebody to write you a check, or you can, but that's not the person you want. You want to offer the opportunity up that fits their bucket of, like you said, what do you want? How fast? What are the pain points, right? How can I get this rid of for you quickly? I can do that better than listing it or whatever it may be. That may be the conversation you have in a nicer way, but the amount of people you can convince to do something, it's the wrong audience to target. You want to target the people that have, a potential problem, potential issue, or you're offering them a solution to, like you said, a down payment on a new house and or whatever it may be. And I think it was important you caught that, which was great. And Chris's point is, fantastic, right? Don't try and sell someone to someone that doesn't need it, because you could be the best salesman in the world. Yeah. Your time is worth more than trying to convince that person of whatever you're looking for them to do.
Right. I love it. I love that you guys already have that mindset. And for your listeners, like, I hope that you guys are like taking notes on that truly, because like that is the key to the business. And this should ignite a question in your heads of, okay, well, the goal is to find these people, but how do we find them? Mm-hmm. How do we find enough of them to do $1 million in a year like Zack did in just his, 4th year of doing this? How is that even possible? Mm-hmm. And so once I did that first traditional wholesale where I sold it for 10 grand, that was in April of 2017, right? I did my first traditional wholesale. By the end of that year, I had done just over $100,000. But that next 2 months, so January and February of 2018, I didn't do a single deal. Money's drying up, right? Because I spent quite a bit of money on marketing. And so like I didn't pocket 100,000, right? And so I've got to feed my family. I had walked away from window cleaning, and I'm like scared. I'm like, how do I find more people, right? How do we find more people? And so I started testing all these different things and researching like what's the, how to find motivated sellers. Started YouTube and like looking, and I heard about something called driving for dollars, right? Traditionally, driving for dollars, drive through neighborhoods, find houses that have neglect, and then you write down the addresses and you look them up on county records and you market to them. And I started doing that. And it was taking a long time, but I ended up doing a couple deals from it. I was like, wow, this works. And then I heard about an app that all you have to do is drive through the neighborhood, hold your finger on the Google Maps, it drops a pin on the house, right? And then it uploads all of the data that you need to market to them immediately. So then I learned how to really scale driving for dollars. And the app, if you guys are wondering, it's Deal Machine is the app we use. You can use my discount code 2 to get a couple months free on the source. It's PIN, PIN. But anyway, so we got this app, and by the end of that year, we had done just shy of $500,000 in revenue from driving for dollars. Mm-hmm. And it was life-changing. Like that was when it was like, wow, like that's when I was able to start traveling and have everything I've ever wanted. I walked into the bank and paid off $50,000 worth of debt, just wrote a check. Like it was so liberating, right? And it allowed me to start thinking more deeply about what I wanted in life, what I wanted to do. Like now that I can, what do I want? I spent my whole life just like, how do I freaking pay the house payment? Now I'm like, okay, how do I want to give back? Like, what do I want to do more of? And it was pretty liberating. So, if you guys are wondering how to find deals, I truly believe the best way is driving for dollars. Like I've tested a bunch of different marketing channels, but it is by far my favorite.
We actually had your mentor, Cody Hoff, on the show. A buddy of mine who's also on the show, Matt McQuarrie, also went through the same exact program. I say it all the time. When I first started doing real estate, I sat down with a large investor where we live. And the one piece of advice that I took from that, and that I implemented immediately was what he said was wake up Saturday morning and drive around neighborhoods. You will see shit, right? You'll see where there's no cars in the driveway. You'll see with the gutter, because Saturday morning, everybody's home that should be home for the most part. So he said, you wake up at 6 a.m, you go drive around, you're going to do, yes, you can market and send out 10,000 letters tomorrow and not leave your house and wait. But a lot of the stuff that's going to come back, inevitably you're going to have to go see it, most likely for the most part, or someone will have to see it. But driving for dollars is a straight guarantee, and you don't really guarantee much. But anyone listening, if you get off your ass, get in your car and drive around, I guarantee you will find a house that has a problem. And I know of that app. I've never used it, but if that's the case, and you get a free month and you can get up and go drive around, I tell people all the time, recession or not, if you have that skill set to get up, go out, find something that's wrong and fix the problem, you'll make money, right? No matter, the world could be crumbling, but that doesn't mean you can't do it. So I agree 100%. I'm a big believer in that. I've said it, for probably the last couple podcasts, just, that's the easiest way when people say, how do I get started with no money? Get in your car, drive around for 2 hours, drive down a different block than you normally go to work, come home a different route, but take an extra 30 minutes in the morning and at night or whatever it is, you'll see a house that has a problem and fix their problem. And there's money at the end of that, at the end of the, the light at the end of the tunnel. So I'm happy that you said it, Zach, because I could not agree with you. It's amazing that, that's out there for everybody, and probably, 1 out of 10 people take advantage of it.
Oh, it's crazy how few people do. So that's one of the main things I teach my students is driving for dollars. That's how I teach them to find deals. Right. And it's been so absolutely life-changingly amazing and fulfilling to help my students start implementing this and seeing their success. So one of my first students, Scott Dallinger, you can actually see his case study on my YouTube channel, but his first driving for dollars deal, traditional, just no work done to the house, immediately reselling the property, made $113,000 profit, 113 grand in Portland. Able to quit his job and go full time, right? And I have students all across the country that are using driving for dollars to find these deals. And people are like, okay, well, that sounds hard. That sounds like a lot of time. Why is that the best? And the reason for that is when someone wants speed and convenience for their house is a thorn in their side, right? And so if a house is a thorn in someone's side, they're not going to want to go pick the weeds. They're not going to want to mow the lawn. They're not going to go fix the siding when a little piece blows off. They're going to put duct tape on the cracked glass. They're not going to replace it. They're going to throw tarps on the roof instead of fixing the roof, right? They're going to be obvious signs that property is a thorn in the side. And so when you're driving around, you're pinpointing the exact houses that need to get your marketing. Instead of marketing to a big blanketed area, it's very focused, and it makes it so even in your extremely competitive markets like Southern California, I have a fireman that's absolutely crushing it. In his first few months, he made 80 grand, quit his job. Now he's full time, right? And it's because you're so focused, laser focused on the right properties that you can be spending, 10 cents to make $1. You can be making, spending 20 cents, 25 cents to make $1. I guarantee if you went to Vegas, you put in 20 cents and $1 pops out, and you kept doing that over and over and over, you would never step away from that money machine, right? And that's the beauty of this marketing channel. It's a true money machine. Right?
I love it. When I first started, it's 2012, give or take. And when I was driving, I used to drive around with a stack of sticky pads in my car, and pre-printed. All I would do, and they look like little notice of violation stickers. There was no deal machine when I first started, and I'm not much older than you. We're about the same age, just judging by what you said. So, I'm 33. So when we first started, those apps were not there. So I used to drive around, and I still do to this day. If I'm driving around in an area and I see a problem, I take out a piece of paper.
Brother, get deal machine on your phone, man.
Or I could do that, right? That's probably the easier way. But I still do it to this day because it's a habit at this point. But when I first started, I remember, I had a pad of a stack of shit in my car, and then if I saw a problem, I would stop the car, get out, knock on the door. If no one answered, I would stick something on it or put call this number, and then write it down, go home and look it up and send a mailer or try and get a phone number. But I'm a huge believer in it. I could not agree with you more. It's an easy, guaranteed way to find a problem. I can't guarantee the dollars you're going to make, but you will find issues, and it's things that no one you don't notice it. And right now we're coming into a good time of year, going into the fall. Look for overgrown grass, right? The whole summer happens. So if the grass is this high, no one's probably living there, right? So there are little things that you could pick up, and the more you look for it. But I agree with you 100%. It's a clear-cut sign and an easy way to do it. And you can do it while you work, because you just got to drive a different way, wake up a little bit earlier, go home a little bit later, whatever it may be. But I agree with you 100%. So I'm a big believer in that.
Yeah, and you don't need a massive amount of time to add a lot of properties. So the system that we're running and how we function and add these. Sorry, let me adjust this camera. I didn't realize how high it was. We're adding like 120 to 150 properties to our driving for dollars list every single hour of driving. And that's like full in your Excel spreadsheet, ready to go to marketing. Mm-hmm. Right. And so you don't need a ton of time. Like what I suggest to people is you set aside 2-3 hours. You set a goal of like, I want to add 200 properties to my list every single week. Right. So just to get an idea of scale and what it takes to do a large amount of deals, we're adding 2,000 properties every single week to our marketing list. That's every single week with one driver. He drives 3 to 4 days a week is all, right? To add that many properties. And that amount of properties is generating over $1 million a year for me. And I'm spending less. I'm spending about 13 cents to make $1. So only about $130,000 of that $1 million is going to marketing. So if you do the math, my profitability is through the roof. It really is.
Now, when you guys are driving for dollars, just rule of thumb, and I know every market's going to be a little bit different, but what do you normally tell people? Like, what do you pay somebody like that to do that, to add those properties?
Yeah. So hourly. When I first started, I started paying commissions. I was paying like 20% commissions, and because I didn't have enough money. That's a story I tell myself. Everyone has enough money to pay someone, right? Everyone can find a way to come up with the money, but I was paying commissions, and just to see if it would work. In that first 6 months, it blew up, right? And I calculated that first 6 months of what I paid my drivers as far as commission versus paying my driver now at $20 an hour, $100 a deal, and compensating for gas. I overpaid by like $60,000 or something, which is just crazy because that was more than I made washing windows, right? So like the first 6 months, paying commissions is a huge mistake. More than anything, you don't create consistency. Your ultimate goal is consistency. Because if you don't have, little dollar bills going out there in marketing, no dollar bills are going to come running back with more dollar bills, right?
I agree 100%.
Yeah. So that the hourly and saying like, I want this many addresses every single week. I want this many hours driven every single week, and I'll compensate you for that. You're going to get way better marketing and way more consistent.
Without a doubt. I made the same mistake. I think everybody has that. You feel like I don't have anything, I'm going to get someone to do it. And then you end up paying a lot more money than you should, when you could just throw out there an hourly rate, $1 a house or whatever it may be. If you hit your goal, make it that incentive, not 20% of the profit or 15% of whatever it is, because you're going to pay a lot more that way. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, right? Maybe you're trying to build some type of team and you want a good employee to start that could scale up to acquisitions or something. But inevitably, I agree with you, out of the box, figure it out, even if it means work an extra couple hours at wherever you're currently working and throw that money in the bank to say, okay, I get $25 an hour. I'll pay someone 15. I have 6 months of money saved, and that's what I do. But I agree with you 100%. Right. It works significantly better.
I'm actually so confident in how well this works. And I tell this story and I teach people about this, and I have this on my YouTube channel, and I have students, and like, the other night I couldn't sleep because I was thinking, how do I help others believe in themselves that they can do this? Right? Because other people look at Chris or look at John or look at me and say, oh, wow, they're super successful. They're talking about making crazy amounts of money that I never imagined that I could possibly do. But, how do I show them that, how a window cleaner could go do this? How do I show them that just any average Joe or any average gal can go out and do the same exact thing? And so I was like, okay, how do I show this? How do I demonstrate this? I was like, why don't I just go demonstrate it? So I'm actually going to move to Florida with my family this winter to get out of the cold. And that was why I picked Florida. Honestly, you can do this in any market across the country. And but we're going to go there for 40 days, and I'm going to take $1,000. That's all I get. And my goal is to turn that into $40,000 in 40 days. And I'm going to have a film crew follow me, and you guys get to watch the whole process, exactly what I'm doing, how to do it, so you guys can go and duplicate exactly what I'm doing and have the same kinds of results. So the crazy thing is $40,000 is actually the average income for an American in the United States. And I want to show that I can make that amount of money in just 40 days. The other thing to keep in mind, if I accomplish this, if I actually put $40,000 in my pocket, I believe that only a quarter of the deals that I will be getting will have closed in that time, because only about 25% of the deals we do are ready to close when I first contact them. Normally they're 3-6 months, a year of follow up and talking to them until they're really ready to sell speed and convenience or sell a different route, right? So if I make 40 grand, I feel like I actually made anywhere between $120,000 to $160,000 ultimately with the efforts and the money that I put in.
I
love it.
Yeah. So I'm really curious on, because I think this will help a lot of people too, of like the strategy side. So I was going to ask, like, how do you view like certain neighborhoods, markets, types of houses, things like that? And I think what might be more prevalent or helpful to people is like, as you're thinking about this challenge and as you're doing it, like, what is your strategy going to be going into it? Are you going to be targeting certain types of houses, certain neighborhoods, looking for certain cues in the houses, like certain problems with it? Is it just going to be a numbers game? Like, how are you going to target it with a $1,000 budget?
Those are such good questions. And I'm thinking about already creating some YouTube videos on like exact strategy and how to prepare, because this is those same things are what people need to do in their own markets. Or if they want to do it, in a different market, like this is how they would have to research it. So first of all, you got to identify where you want to do deals, right? So for me, I chose Florida because it's sunny, right? Truly, that was the only reason. It's close to Disney. So I'm working crazy hours. It'd be fun for my family. But, wherever you live, it can be done. Right. The only place that I'm not as 100% confident. Well, I shouldn't say that, because let me say this. If there's someone wholesaling or someone flipping houses where you live, it can be done where you live. Okay. We'll just say that. If no one is doing it, then it can't be done. Right. Or you probably shouldn't go be the guinea pig that tries and gets beat up. Right. So once you identify that it can be done where you live, then what I want you to do is go out and find your lower to lower income housing. So the way that you can do that, and how I did it virtually, in a market, is I went to Zillow, right? And you go to properties sold, and you can see like, oh, these are being sold for $400,000 to $500,000 in Florida, right? That's your higher end housing in Florida. And then your lower end is like, oh, they're sold for anywhere between 60 and 180 to 250. Right. So I'm like, okay, these are my lower end areas. Right. And I bought some maps so you can buy like zip code maps from mapworld.com, I think is what it is. I can't remember. I'm not affiliated in any way, but you can buy these zip code maps, which is they're like just like black and white maps with like red lines around the zip codes. And you can get on Zillow and look up those areas and start highlighting those areas that really have a bunch of those lower to middle income housing areas. Right. Once you find that, then you can start talking to your flippers. Right. You should be building a cash buyers list, and you have to have a cash buyers list to be able to move these properties. And I have YouTube videos on how to build a cash buyers list. I won't get into that. But you can call up some of your bigger cash buyers and say, hey, where if you had $10,000 a month to spend in marketing, where would you do it? Like, where would you go focus? Right? What zip codes? And you can say, I've identified these 10 zip codes that look really good. What would you think would be the best of those 10? Right? And they'll be like, oh, we do a lot of deals in that market. Oh, there's a lot of deals in that market. The other thing you can do is you can get on other wholesalers' cash buyers lists. So you find out who your wholesalers are, reach out to their secretary or them themselves if they're a one-man team, and say, hey, can I get added to your cash buyers list? I'm a flipper. They'll add you in, they'll email you the deals. And the reason for that, there's a couple reasons for it, but one of the reasons is you can see exactly what little cities, what little neighborhoods, like where are they spitting out the most deals. And you get a really good idea where those deals are being found, because a lot of people think, oh, well, that's where the competition is. I don't want to go there. And it's like, no, if there's deals there, there's more deals there, right? And you're going to be the one getting the deals because you're going to be really laser focused on the exact properties within that neighborhood, right? So once you identify those areas, that's how I would do it. Then you would start driving. My goal when I show up is that first week, I want to add anywhere between 5,000 and 7,000 addresses to my marketing list in that first 7 days. So I'm going to be driving crazy hours, hopped up on Red Bull, and just working like a crazy person, right? Because we don't have success without massive amounts of action. We don't. Right? A lot of people are like, oh, Zach, I'm not seeing any results. I added 150 properties to my list. It's like, man, that's really good, but you got to step it up. Come on now. Like I look at it this way. If you want success, like if you truly want it, you would work hard. And whenever I have someone come to me and say, I'm not getting results, what needs to change? One of the first things I ask is, okay, do you have children? Do you have a family? And if the answer is yes, usually it's yes, right? Everyone usually has a family. I say, okay, do you love them deeply? Yes. If you didn't get a deal in the next 30 days, your family would starve to death. Would you work differently? Yes, I would. Then work like that. Work like your family being fed is on the table. Like that is what you're dealing with, right? You will work differently. And so a lot of people, they want to see success. They want that success, but they don't want to do the work, right? The pain of not doing a deal is not as strong as the pain of doing the work, right? And so they don't necessarily put in those efforts. So I'm going to go crazy, add as many properties as I can using the Deal Machine app. And then I'm going to immediately start cold calling and texting. I prefer postcards, but it's a little bit more drawn out process. I teach everyone to do postcards. I have a time crunch though of 40 days. And so if I was telling someone else, I would say postcards. But I'm going to do texting and cold calling just because I can get through people in like 2-3 days. I mean, and I'll be cold calling from about 10 in the morning, from about 8 in the morning till about 10:30 in the afternoon. And texting at the same time. I'll have dual screens going, and I'll be using a triple line dialer. So I'll be calling 3 people at one time and texting. So I'm going to be I'm going to be reaching out to probably 1,000 people every single hour, honestly. And then I'll just be texting and responding to texts throughout the entire afternoon into about 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'll jump back into the dialer and cold call the rest of the evening. And if I'm really struggling to get through everyone, I may just dial the entire day, 12 to 15-hour days, and text at the same time. So
there's the blueprint. So anyone listening, there's no reason why you can't extrapolate that into any market you're in. Because that's the blueprint right there, right? You just gave the basic, easy. Yeah, there's some intricate things in there, but 100%. People can pick up the pieces. So that was awesome. We appreciate that 100%.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think what people need to take away is not the intricacies of everything, because we could ask questions of, oh, how do you plan out your route to drive? And like, what types of postcards do you send? And what do you say when people answer? And luckily for anybody listening, they're probably not under a 40-day time crunch. So the answer is try something and figure it out and just continue to make it better, and or look up free resources on how other people are doing it. Spend 30 minutes a day looking up, the best direct mail campaigns, and you'll get a couple ideas, and then go out and try it and refine it as you go and do it. It's more this high level overview is going to be way more impactful, and understanding how to go about it than directly getting the best strategy to plan out a route of what to drive. Like, just doing is more important than figuring it out, right? Just go drive 10 blocks. Don't worry about the best path to do it. Go send out 100 direct mails. Don't worry about, is it the best postcard? Putting into action that plan is way more important.
Chris knows what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Done is better than perfect.
Yep.
Right? Don't try and be perfect, because you're not. No one is. So just do it, right? Just do it. Done is better than perfect.
So I am curious, though. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, like, yes, go out and get started. Like, and I became a mentor. I started teaching because At the end of that year where I did about $500,000, it was just shy, like I was shy like 50 grand. I mean, I was barely shy of that 500,000. And I wanted to do $1 million that next year. It was actually something I thought about my entire life. How do I do $1 million in a year? It all started when I was mowing lawns for wealthy people. You know, I grew up really poor and I was mowing lawns from 11 to like 15 for my family business. And I remember asking my dad, you know, are these guys millionaires? You know, he's like, yeah, son, they're probably millionaires. I was like, man, I'm going to make $1 million in a year one year. You know, I remember thinking that from the time I was a little kid. I don't know why. And so I was like, okay, well, how do I get to $1 million? And I had set that goal, but I had no idea how. I felt like I tapped out driving for dollars. I didn't think I could get it any bigger. And so I did a self-help journal called Living Your Best Year Ever with a good friend of mine. And in there, it talked about the importance of giving away whatever you wanted to receive, right? So I was like, okay, well, I need to give away $1 million. I was like, how the hell do I give away $1 million when I don't have it? And so I was like, well, I could teach people my marketing system and put $1 million in their businesses that way, right? I could teach them, I could give as far as education. So I was like, all right. So I brought on 10 people and I started teaching them and helping them. And they started asking me questions and we started perfecting some of the systems, right? And they started, and like, I found huge mistakes. I mean, like embarrassing mistakes in my own business when I started teaching, right? The more you teach, the more you give, the more you receive. It was something I learned. And, you know, that's when we did $1.2 million. We went from just shy of $500,000 to 1.2. And the change was I started teaching other people. And so you guys said, go out and get started. I agree 100% you should, but a lot of people want help and they want a mentor to kind of walk them through step by step. And so I have a mastery, program. I only bring on 20 students a month because, my goal is to get my students success, right? That whole vision of why I became a coach is still why I'm a coach, to get my students to success, getting their first deals. And so this is just my recording, but in my main office where I actually sit down and do my work, I have pictures of all my students behind me that still haven't done a deal and their names and their markets. And they're holding me accountable to get them a deal, right? That's why I put them in my office around me. And then I have my success board out in the main room of students that are now doing deals. And the reason I only bring on 20 students is so I can not fill up my room, right? Have room for all their pictures more than anything. But my goal is to get them success. And if I bring on more than that, then I can't. So I can't coach everyone. And so that's why I give so much away, because I want you guys to be successful. And if you go out and do this on your own, I want to know about it. I want to hear about it, right? I want to interview you and hear your story and and share those feel goods, right? But if you guys want help, you can apply. You have to apply to be a part of the program. I don't take everybody. So there is that option as well. I just want that to be understood that they can if they want to, but they don't have to, for sure. I don't want you to, I'm not trying to push you to do it, because I only want people that really want to be there, because I spend a lot of time with you guys.
Yeah, 100%. Different strokes for different folks. Before we wrap up, I did just have one last question that I think be a last little nugget and interesting too. Mm-hmm. You said you would encourage people to do direct mail and postcards over cold calling and texting. You're only doing that because of the time crunch. Why did you say that?
Great question. The main reason is when someone's new to investing, right? And you're cold calling or texting, it requires that you understand how to explain well that you're trying to find someone that wants to sell to an investor versus there requires a lot more skill set to find out if it's actual lead or if it's a tire kicker, right? Because a lot of people say, hey, I don't know, make me an offer, and it's like, it's a tire kicker, right? And so what I suggest is sending postcards when you're beginning, because if someone goes out of their way to take the postcard, send a text message to it, or to pick up, dial it, and call it, they are motivated. Right? If their voicemail is go die pound sand, right? They're not motivated, of course. But if they're like, yeah, I'd like to sell my house, that is a motivated seller, right? They are motivated enough to pick up the phone and call you. So it's a lot easier to without having experience of understanding how to work with motivated sellers, postcards are the easiest way for new people to really understand the difference between tire kickers and motivated sellers.
Gotcha. Makes a lot of sense. Great place to wrap up. Zack, thank you so much for coming on. I think you dropped a ton of knowledge for people. I definitely learned a couple of things. I think anybody listening will as well. If anybody wants to follow you, learn more about you, get in touch with you, where can they do all that great stuff?
Yeah, you can follow me on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. So my name is Zack Boothe, Z-A-C-K. Last name's Boothe, B-O-O-T-H-E. My website is dfdmastery.com. So DFD is driving $4, mastery.com. And you can, all of my links to my social media are in there. Everything else, if you want to book a call and see if we're a fit as far as students, you can do that there. But yeah, that's the best place. Probably my website. You can get access to everything I have.
Beautiful. Guys, definitely go check it out. I'm sure there's a ton of great info and a ton of great content on his social channels as well. Once again, thank you guys for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you got a ton of value out of it, it would mean the world to John and I if you would subscribe. If you already subscribed, please send it to someone who you think would get a tremendous amount of value from this episode or others. Zack, once again, thanks for coming on, bud. This was great.